Hello and welcome to today's video. Thanks so much for joining me. Today I am doing another one brand video. This is going to be all on Revlon products. As requested by a few of my lovely subscribers, they asked to see the brand Revlon. I had some things from this line in my collection that I have used and tried before in previous drugstore videos. Some of these things I haven't used at all, so it'll be first time trying them, first impressions with you on camera. And some things I just feel very passionate about and really enjoy and love, and I cannot wait to share those favorites with you as we get through those products and those steps of the routine. I've got all of my products out on my little organizing tray as I have organized my collection of products to keep things just more neat. I'm ready to tackle this brand today and share with you my thoughts, create a look for you. So if that sounds good, then continue watching. I've got a couple primers to use. I think I'm going to try to incorporate both of them. The first one is the Prime Plus Perfecting and Smoothing Primer that comes in a white bottle with a pump, and the Colorstay Grip 16-Hour Matte Primer with a Superfood Detox Blend. So this is supposed to be their version of the e.l.f. kind of grippy primer. I think that's what they're trying to do. I haven't used this at all, so I don't know what the feel is and how this is going to work with the foundation. I haven't tried this one either. I've just taken the seals off of everything to get it going for the video. The foundation that I'm going to use, though, I'm going to show you, it's the Colorstay Longwear Foundation. This is the combination to oily skin option. They do have a normal to dry option, which this shade that I thought would work, 150 by the way, was not available. It were not in stock at Target, so I ended up just picking up this one bottle in the combination to oily skin version, which I did try over the weekend over the L'Oreal primer that I have enjoyed quite a bit. And it did look a little dry and it didn't blend very well in certain areas like around the nose and between the brows. So I do want to try this again with the primers within the same brand to see if it's going to be different. But they also do have a couple other options for foundation products in their line. They have different ones that you can choose from at different retailers. But one of the newest additions to their foundation line is the Illuminance range of products. They have a skin tint, which I've already reviewed. The shade 117 is a good match for me. I will list and link it down below. And then the foundation also within the Illuminance line with hyaluronic acid, 5% squalane. This is in the shade 105 and it does look really light. So I don't want to use this because this is going to be not the right shade. And I do feel like sometimes when I get the shade wrong, it does kind of change how I feel about the foundation. So I want to use something that is pretty close to a good match. So I'm going to go with this one, but then we're going to try it with these two primers. So here is the texture of the gripping primer that comes in the black tube. And then right next to it is the Prime Plus primer. And hopefully you can tell on the camera, the textures and the color look exactly the same. I thought the grippy primer, the one in the black tube, was going to have a more kind of jelly consistency, a little bit more transparent, just because more grippy primers tend to be more clear. I was not expecting it to be like the same shade as this one. Does it really matter? Probably not. I think we'll find out how this is going to wear, but I definitely wanted to show you the consistency of these primers. They're rather thick and what they look like as far as color. And let me show you a look at the foundation in case you haven't seen this one. And then here is a look at the foundation. As you can see, it's slowly dripping down. So it is a much more thicker formula than the Illuminance skin tint. And this does have a lot more coverage than the skin tint. So just putting that out there in case you were kind of curious about these formulas and how they compare. I think I'm going to take the grippy primer and place that right where I have larger pores, where I tend to see more of a breakdown of foundation. So over the nose, because of oil production, the sides of the nose, the chin, around the mouth area that tends to kind of get wiped away as we eat and go about the day. I'm going to use that kind of grip right there to see if it actually changes the way this foundation wears for me. It wears well, but it just looked a little dry and heavy when I was using it over a more matte primer. So even though this says matte on the packaging, the Superfood Blend Grip Primer, I hope that it's not going to be too drying. So we're going to do this through the T-zone. And then I'm going to take the Prime Plus Perfecting and Smoothing Primer through the parameters and the outer portions of my face. So I'm using my damp beauty sponge to blend in the foundation. And I do feel like shade 150 is a pretty good match, which I'm excited about because I always match myself wrong. But this looks to be pretty good. And that's why I tested this out this past weekend, just to make sure and to give myself time that if I got it really wrong, that I could go to the store and kind of remedy the situation before I filmed. but I think I did pretty good. I'm liking how this foundation is looking a little bit better today than it did over the weekend. I have a little bit of an area right here where it didn't kind of blend as well, but that's really the only spot. The troublesome areas between the brows and the sides of the nose do look improved, so I think that this foundation works best with the matching primers within the Revlon line versus mixing it with other brands. So now we get to go to concealer. This is the Colorstay Skin Awakening Concealer. I've had this in my collection for some time. I talked about this weeks ago. This is the 5-in-1 concealer. The shade 003 is quite light and very brightening on me, but I do really like the formula. I like the coverage. It has that spongy tip, so I'm going to just use this because I didn't buy a new concealer, and you can see how brightening this is. So I'm going to apply this with the applicator, but I'm going to blend it in with my Beauty Blender. Moving on to setting powder, I'm going to use a translucent pressed powder. This is part of their Colorstay line. At Target, they had the translucent shade, which I picked up, and then it also came in a couple different options. I don't know if they have a loose powder that you could use to set the under eye and your face and also do the baking technique if you're into that. So what I'm going to do is take a clean velour puff. This is from Sonia Kashuk, also available at Target, and I'm just going to kind of smush this puff in there, pick up some product, press this under the eyes in the larger pore area where I produce oil just to kind of set, and then lightly use it on the perimeters of the face. I don't want to go heavy with powder around the sides where I tend to be a little bit more dry, because I feel like that could possibly make my skin look even more dry with this foundation that is more oil controlling and more matte. So I'm just going to be a little bit more strategic today. So I switched to the e.l.f. complexion brush just to kind of press and gently pat that translucent powder over my face so that the next products that I apply blend as best as they can. Moving on to brows, I initially had the micro pencil in the shade dark brown, and I've tested this out before, and I think I may have used this in a separate video a while back. This was quite dark, so I went back and I picked up the shade in medium brown. So I'm going to use both of these. These are the only brow products that I have from the Revlon line, so I'm going to use both of these and kind of see how the medium brown looks, and then maybe use a little bit of the dark brown, and I'm going to zip through this and fast forward this portion of the video. Now that the brows are done, I did use mostly the medium brown, and I did take the dark brown towards the arch and tail end, and I'm trying to make that dark brown work because I did purchase it and I want to make use out of it instead of just letting it sit in my collection. But I do like the pencil. I think it worked really well, and the medium brown is a more ideal shade for me. Then I went ahead and set the brows with the Brazilian Lift from Physicians Formula. This is just a clear brow gel, has a really great hold, and this is kind of in that Revlon price point. I didn't see a clear gel from Revlon at Target. I didn't see one on Ulta's website or in person at Ulta stores, so I don't know if they even make a clear, so we're just going to go with the Physicians Formula and move on to the next step, which is bronzer. I have one bronzer, and it's the Skin Lights bronzer in the shade Sun-Kissed Beam. Looks like that. I will show you an up-close shot. It's really pretty. I love the design on this, and it has a bit of a luminous kind of finish to it, and I hope it's not too shimmery. I'm going to go back to that e.l.f. complexion brush to apply this and blend this into the skin, and hopefully it doesn't apply too heavily. It does look like a more baked formula based off of how it looks in the pan and the fact that I'm not really picking up a whole bunch on my brush, which could be a good thing or a bad thing. We'll see how it performs, but I do feel like it's showing up a little bit on my skin and adding a little bit of warmth, and I like how it looks so far, the tone of it. I just wish that more brands at the drugstore would do more matte finishes. I have a lot of bronzers through this journey that I'm on for drugstore products that have a bit of sheen in it, and I personally would prefer a more matte. Physicians Formula, since we talked about their brow gel, is known to have a little bit of a sheen in their bronzers and their formulas, and I just want a more matte bronzer. But that looks really nice, and it blended out really well. And it's doing what it's supposed to do, which is add some color, some bronze, and just kind of warm up the skin. Add a little bit of warmth and life back into the skin. So there's a very subtle sheen. Maybe you can kind of see when I move my face a little bit with the lighting, that you can kind of see just very, very slightly. You have to get really close to see it, which I do appreciate. I don't like shimmer in my blushes or anything too luminous. I think the shade works well for my fair skin. It blended out really nicely, so I really do like this, and I can see myself using it again. And I think this brush is perfect, the e.l.f. complexion brush, to blend this in. You do have to kind of dig your brush into it because it seems to be more of like a baked type of formula, where you don't really pick up too much. Like when you put your brush into it, you don't see much on the bristle. So you really have to like jam your brush in there and then you start to see the product. So it's very user friendly, and I feel like because of that, it allows you to not be so heavy handed, at least for me, because I always go crazy overboard, especially with bronzer, and I do appreciate that aspect of this formula. Next up for blush, I picked up one blush from Target. This is the Oh Baby pink shade of the powder blush, and it looks like this. It's a nice soft pink shade. Looks like it might not show up very well, but we'll see. These can be quite deceiving, these shades. Like they could be light and almost non-existent, or they could be buildable and then you really see the shade. So I'm gonna apply some of this with a Morphe brush. I like how this is a more matte finish, and I think it's gonna play quite nicely with the glowy bronzer. So I'm gonna start by just kind of patting this on the higher points of the cheek and then blending this onto the apples of the cheek. And we'll compare just bronzer and then bronzer and blush. I do like how soft this looks and how pretty. It just looks like a natural flush to the skin. So I do like this, and it's blending out really nicely. I feel like it's showing up a little bit more on this side, right? Than this side. I feel like maybe once you break through that top layer, okay, I told you these could be deceiving. These could be more pigmented than you expect. The final step for this complexion routine today is going to be some highlight. I have the Skin Lights Prismatic Highlighter in the shade Daybreak Glimmer number 201. And this looks so pretty. I just really love the pattern and the design. It just looks so nice and definitely a little bit more appealing when you look at it. It's really pretty. I hope it's not super intense. I'm going to tread softly just because I don't have experience with this formula. And I'm going to apply that with a ColourPop F32 brush. Whoa. Whoa. Okay. That is, that's intense. And you can really see the sheen and the shimmer kind of sitting on the skin. So I think I picked up way too much to start. And I do feel like this shade, because it has a little more of a gold undertone to it, I do feel like it does show up against my fair skin like a stripe, as you see there. So I'm going to have to tone this down and tread softly the next time I use this. I'm not going to pick up as much, but I'm going to have to go over this with my damp beauty sponge and tone it down. So I'm going to just kind of press lightly. Okay, so this is not my favorite formula. I think I picked up too much of this highlighter. I think it could be the brush as well. But if you look closely, you can actually see the sheen and the shimmer kind of sitting on the skin. So I do feel like this sort of formula, if you go too much, can probably accentuate texture and dryness if you have it in this sort of upper zone of the cheek area. So I'm going to have to tone this down. I think I put too much on my nose. Again, I go back to being heavy-handed. So I'm going to use my damp sponge to kind of press and tap this and sort of try to blend this a little further and lift this up a little bit off of the skin. And that seems to be helping just a little bit on the nose. But that was intense. I was not prepared. I managed to salvage my complexion routine today and not mess things up. But this is what we've got so far. Moving on to eyes, I do have one eyeshadow quad from Revlon. It says new and improved across the front. So that intrigued me there to check this out again and kind of revisit their formula of eyeshadow. It's been such a long time. This is the Colorstay Day to Night quad in the shade 500 Addictive. And if you look up closely with the up close shots, they do look quite pale, very kind of cool toned. I've been into the cool tone vibes lately and have enjoyed it. They do all look like they have a level of sheen. Some more satiny, some a little bit more metallic. There's one that seems to have a little bit of a sparkle, very finely milled sparkle. So I'm hoping it's not super glittery once I kind of break through that top layer. But this is what I've got for an eye look today. I do have some eyeliners and mascara that we're going to be testing out as well. But I want to get started with this look today. And I'm going to take the lightest shade in the palette that's labeled number 1. I'm going to use that shadow and go all over my lids right up to the brow bone to kind of prep the lids for the other eyeshadow colors. And I'm using a base shadow brush from Real Techniques. I'm going to attempt to use this shade right here, which is right next to it. It's labeled number 2 on the back of the palette. This is a very cool tone, like a stone gray with a bit of a sheen to it. It kind of looks like it could be very microfine sparkle to it, so I'm going to use a fluffy crease brush to apply this shade to my crease. So as I look closely, I don't really see too much of that sparkle. I think it's just because I'm using a big fluffy brush, and that's a good thing because I wanted something a little bit lighter in my crease before going in with some of the deeper shades. So I do like how it's not really picking up a lot of that kind of sparkle because I tend to not want, personally, just personal preference, anything with a sheen, shimmer, metallic, glitter finish in my crease. I almost always use mattes. If I'm gonna use something in the crease, it's gonna be a matte finish. Next, to deepen things up, I'm going to take the deepest shade in the palette, which is on the bottom row, and I'm gonna use that on the outer V. And I'm going to apply this with the e.l.f. eyeshadow brush, and I'm gonna pat this on the outer part of my eye and blend and keep this color as close to the outer V area as possible. I don't wanna bring it in too far, and I don't wanna bring it up too high either into the crease. So I'm just focused on placement right now, right on this outer part. And then I'm gonna go back into my crease brush that I used earlier with nothing on it, and I'm gonna blend that edge out just a little bit more. With a ColourPop E28 brush, I'm going to take that same dark color and run that on my lower lashes. For the lids, I'm going to take the last shade in this palette, which seems to have a more metallic finish to it, and I'm going to use a pointed shadow brush from Morphe to apply this. Moving on to eyeliner, I have a couple different options to choose from, some that I have not used yet, so I think I'm going to aim for those today. The one liner in this group that I have tried already is the newest multiplayer liners. These are the Liquid Glide eye pencils, and these are very creamy, very pigmented. They do transfer though if you use these in the waterline. I have had issues with it kind of gathering in the inner corner of my eye. So if I tightline with this, I will only do it pretty much halfway. I don't bring this in too far, but it's a nice creamy pencil that you can kind of move around, use it kind of smoky lash liner kind of look. You can use it as an eyeshadow. It does come with a brush applicator on the end, which is different and makes it stand out from other liners at the drugstore. They usually come with a sponge tip if they give you a blending tool. So it's nice to see that the drugstore is doing something like this, but I don't really care for this formula for my waterline. So I did end up buying the Colorstay eyeliner. These are the 24-hour liners. It's one of the retractable ones. I picked the shade Black Brown. So I'm going to use this and see how well this performs for me for tight lining and how it wears if it transfers. And then I also did pick up the Micro Easy Precision Liquid Liner. I have not used a liner in this sort of format in a very long time. I usually use pens. I think that they're easier, but this is more of your kind of, I would say, kind of old school inkwell type of eyeliner, and I thought it would be nice to try it. And the applicator is very long and pointy and very precise, so I think this is going to work. So we will see how well these actually apply today. So this went on very easily and very smooth and nice and gentle on the waterline. I did get it a little bit on this contact lens, but that could be my fault, not the fault of the eyeliner. And this one also comes with a kind of smudgy tip if you wanted to smudge it out. But because I have the liquid liner, I'm going to aim for this and wish me luck, okay? Let's hope that I don't make a mess out of my eye look today. I'm going to attempt to do a thin line, just kind of my normal preference with the Colorstay Micro Liner. So that was pretty easy to do. I would say that this kind of pointy tip really allows itself to kind of give you a very thin, crisp, sharp line in the inner corner where you want it more tapered and a little bit thinner. I was able to do a very thin line, and surprisingly enough, I didn't make a mistake too bad. A little bit on the outer edge, but that's fine. It was something I could fix. I think I still prefer, personally, just using a liner pen. I feel like I have much more control. This applicator, even though it's kind of long and very tapered to do a very thin line, it's also very flexible and moves around a little bit, so it's not as stiff as a liner pen. And again, it goes back to having more control, and I think that this does look nice and it's nice and rich and a nice matte black, which I do like, but I do feel like it kind of is one of those moments where you kind of hold your breath because you don't know if it's going to turn out well. I had decent time with it today, but I do feel like it is pretty dark and nice and rich, and I was able to get pretty thin line as I normally like to wear my eyeliner. But I will say that if you are a beginner to liquid liner, I would say get a pen first before you try something like this, because it goes back to that whole control portion of not being able to have a nice kind of steady application. So it's not a bad thing. It's just one of those things where it's kind of goes to personal preference of how you like to apply your liquid liners. Revlon has a new mascara, so we're going to finish the look off with the Xtensionnaire Mascara. This bright gold tube is very flashy, so it grabs your attention when you're looking at their products, and I thought I'd give it a try. I don't think I've ever used a Revlon mascara. This is a traditional mascara wand, so it has those traditional bristles. It's not plastic or rubbery. And the wand, if you look up closely with the up-close shots, you will see that it has a bit of a spiraled effect, and the wand is quite large and very long. So we'll see how this applies and if I'm going to get a nice even layer of mascara, if it's going to blend and kind of soften the lashes, or is it going to clump them up and make it look very spidery. And the brush is kind of big for my eye shape. As you can probably see, it's just as big as my eyeball. So here is the Xtensionnaire Mascara, just one coat on my lashes. I do think that the formula is more wet than I personally prefer. I feel like it's not really giving me a lot of lift and length. Like you can see a little bit of my lashes. So I'm going to go in with a second coat and see what happens as I try to make the lashes look a little bit thicker, longer, just create a more voluminous effect. So we'll see how this builds, but I think the formula, personally, it's not my favorite. And these lashes right here are kind of trying to stick to each other and they don't want to separate. So I'm not liking that. I do feel like the second coat gave me some visible length. As you can see, this is 2 coats versus 1. And here is the eye look with the 2 coats of mascara. The second coat definitely gave some visible length. It's still kind of slightly clumpy, especially the inner corner, the shorter lashes, they're trying to kind of stick together. I think this will be one that can potentially grow on me with time, just letting it hang out in my drawer. It might get better after a week or 2. This is the first time using it today, so it's going to be a little bit more wet. Hopefully it does dry out a little bit as it sits, and maybe it won't, I don't know, but we'll see. I'll definitely keep you guys posted as I do these drugstore videos and continue trying these products out. The eyeshadow was easy to work with and blend, but I wouldn't say that the formula for the quad was super special. If I was going to steer you in the direction of eyeshadow that's affordable, I would say go to ColourPop for eyeshadows. They make some really beautiful formulas, and I would say pass on the quad. But I do like the end result. I do like the look. The cool tone look for the eyeshadow is nice. It's different, and I would probably use it again, maybe to do something simple and quick on the weekends probably. But this is the end result. And the last thing to pull this whole face together is a lip product. If you've seen any of my previous videos when I talk about Revlon lip products, I think you know by now, when I rediscovered their Super Lustrous Lipsticks, I fell in love with the formula. I could not believe that I let so many years go by without trying them. This is a formula that has existed for so long. There is probably 70 some shades in this line. There is every color you can think of. Cream finishes, pearl finishes, shimmer finishes, matte finish. There is something for everyone in this line. And let me tell you, they do lipstick very, very well. So this is definitely something that I absolutely love. And I am so excited to use these. I did pick up one new shade to add to my collection. It's the shade number 668 Primrose, which is a cream finish. And it's a nice, bright, cool pink that I cannot wait to try. And I think I'm going to try to see how it looks with today's eye look. But I've reviewed some of the newer shades that they've come out with over the last couple of months. And one of my very favorites, number 755 Bare It All, is the perfect nude shade to go with any lip liner. I will link my favorites down below, but I think you know by now, owning so many, that I do love this formula. I also think that they do lip liners really well. Their Colorstay lip liner range is pretty nice as well. They have a couple of shades. I only own one in the nude shade, and this does stay on. It goes on really nicely, and it wears so well throughout the day. So I do like using this formula. I've used this before, so I think I'm going to try to see how this pairs with the lipstick today. But one product from Revlon that I am not familiar with is their Super Lustrous The Gloss, okay? I picked up one shade because I wasn't sure if I was going to like this formula. This is the Lean In number 203. Looks like that. Super pretty. It's got a bit of a sheen to it, and I hope it doesn't look super metallic on the lips, but kind of pulling it back from the camera there, you can see a little bit more. The camera tends to wash out the shade, but that's a little bit more up close for you to see how pretty this color looks. And then here's a close-up of the Primrose lipstick number 668, that really pretty cream finish. It's a nice cool pink shade. Let's start with the lip liner first. So this is what the lip liner looks like. I did line and I filled in almost entirely my whole lip area. I left the center kind of bare because I do want to put the cream lipstick over the top. I don't know if it's going to pair well with this liner, but I thought I'd give it a shot and show you this new shade because I am very excited to try this color out. I do prefer the lipstick blended with the lip liner. I think this lipstick is a little bright on its own. I'm going to add a little bit more right through the center and then go back into that lip brush and blend it a little bit more. And why don't we top things off with the gloss? I mean, with the name The Gloss, could it be the gloss that I have yet to discover and I'm sleeping on? We're going to find out today. I do really like this lip combo. I think that the gloss was a little bit more intense, a little bit more pigmented than I expected. But with the lip brush, blending those three products together, I think I ended up with a lip combo that I really do love. And I think I can see myself using this shade again. I can see this looking a little bit more metallic looking on the lips if I put too much on. But because I used the lip brush, I think I toned it down. Do I like that metallic finish? Not really too much, but I want to look into seeing if they have any cream finishes that don't have shimmer in this line because I do like the feel of the gloss. It feels really nice, nourishing, and quite thick on the lips, and I like the overall end result of today's lip combo. The final thing for today's look is a setting spray. So Revlon has the Lock Setting Mist. It's 24 hours. It also has that really dark plastic component as the primer does, so it's part of that super food detox blend line, and this is supposed to lock everything for 24 hours. Am I going to wear my face like this for 24 hours? No, but I'm going to let you know how this works out at the end of a normal wear, which is usually 10 or so hours for me day to day. So I'm going to set my face with this today, give it a good old shake. So overall, I do like the end result. I think that they do have some good products, some products that I can see myself using in the future and in other drugstore videos. I do want to play around with a little bit more of their Illuminance line, maybe trying this out, mixing something into it to deepen it a bit and kind of see what this formula is like. I do like the setting spray. I think that the mist on that was really nice, a nice even mist. I don't feel like it was too much of like water droplets and more uneven. I think that it did spray nicely, which is super important for a setting spray. You want to have a nice even coating over the entire face. And then I just use my sponge to kind of press it in and just let it air dry. And this is the end result. I do think that I like the way it looks. I feel like the concealer though is trying to play me today with that setting powder. It's not really looking as good as it normally does. So I'm going to just say that it has something to do with the pressed translucent powder. I think that maybe those two are just not vibing very well because I do like that concealer, and that's the reason why I didn't buy a new one. So if you like Revlon products, please let me know what your favorite products are from this line. What should I try next? What brands do you want to see with this drugstore series that I'm doing? I hope that this was fun and helpful for you to see their products in action. Let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for being here, for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. I'm coming at you with lots of drugstore content in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on those videos. And I'd love to be friends with you over on Instagram. You can find me there. It's always here on the screen. Take care, you guys, and we'll talk very soon. Bye-bye.